Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to another segment of Voices of Empowerment with Dr. B. I am Dr. B. I am an LPC, that is a licensed personal counselor. I am a life and purpose coach, master life and purpose coach. I am also a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm a spiritual mentor, teacher, reader, astrologer, all of the things that entails healing and empowering, self empowerment, self awareness, self actualization, all of the things to lead you back to you, which is the power that is you. Okay. We are here together on Tuesday evening, collectively reading through the amazing, phenomenal book, Caste, The Origins of Our Discontents. There was a movie depicted of this book called Origins. If you have not seen it, I do invite you to do so. It is so good. Obviously, the books are always better because it's more detailed. It paints a greater picture. The movie has only 2-3 hours tops to encapsulate the messaging, all of it in its entirety. But the book has no limitations, right? So it's going to tell you all of it. It's going to reach every nook and cranny and paint the picture for you. So listen, this book is available for you for free in a PDF form. At the end of the segment, I will let you know how you can acquire yours. Okay. All righty. For now, as you already know, on Tuesdays I do not like to keep you long. I know we started 5 minutes behind. I was in a conversation with someone, a very necessary conversation, so I had to finish that. I don't like to rush people, regardless of what it is I have on the schedule. Sometimes you have to leave room for delay. You have to, give people your undivided attention. They're deserving of it. You would want somebody to give their, uh, you know what I mean. You would want somebody to give you their undivided attention, and so there you go. I like to do that with people. I like to be present in the moment. Okay, not rushing or whatever the case is. If you do that, you might miss a blessing. That's a message for somebody, okay? Be in the moment always, always, always. Alrighty? Alrighty, you all. Without further ado, we are airing live from multiple platforms. We're on Clubhouse, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, all of the things, okay? So wherever you're listening in and viewing from, I thank you for your presence. Even if you're watching and listening from the replay, I thank you so very much for tuning in, giving us your energy and your presence and all of that. And I invite you to use the chat section, comment, share your thoughts, your feelings, your insights, and things like that. I will give voice to your words so that the other platforms will be able to glean from that as well. Okay. If not, if you just want to tune in and listen in as you would an audible, then you go right ahead. Okay. We are reading through chapter. It's part two. We are on part two, chapter 9, okay? And that is entitled The Evil of Silence. The Evil of Silence. Here we go. The ash rose from the crematorium into the air, carried by karma and breeze, and settled onto the front steps and geranium beds of the townspeople living outside the gates of death at Sachsenhausen, north of Berlin. The ash coated the swing sets and paddling pools in the backyards of the townspeople. There was no denying the slaughter and torment on the other side of the barbed wire. The fruit of evil fell upon villagers like snow dust. They were covered in evil, and some were good parents and capable spouses, and yet they did nothing to stop the evil, which had now grown too big for one person to stop, and thus no one person was complicit. And yet everyone was complicit. It had grown bigger than them because they had allowed it to grow bigger than them. And now it was raining down onto their gingerbread cottages and their lives of pristine conformity. The descendant theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer was one of the millions who suffered and perished behind the electrified walls of a Nazi concentration camp, tortured and kept in solitary confinement. Could the townspeople hear the prayers of the innocents? Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. Bonhoeffer once said of bystanders, God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. The villagers were not all Nazis. In fact, many Germans were not Nazis, but they followed the Nazi leaders on the radio, waited to hear the latest from Hitler and Goebbels. The Nazis, having seized the advantage of this new technology, the chance to reach Germans, live and direct in their homes anytime they chose, an intravenous drip to the mind. The people had ingested the lies of an inherent untermenschens that these prisoners, Jews, Sinti, homosexuals, opponents of the Reich, were not humans like themselves, and thus the townspeople swept the ash from their steps and carried on with their days. Mothers pulled their children inside when the wind kicked up, hurried them along to keep them from being covered in the ash of fellow human beings. In the middle of Main Street in a southern American town, there stood a majestic old tree, an elm or an oak or a sycamore that had been planted before modern roads were paved. It held a sacred place in the hearts of the townspeople, though it was an altogether inconvenient location for a shade tree. It blocked traffic, coming and going, and motorists were forced to curve around it to get through the town. It was the potential cause of many accidents, given that motorists could not always see past it and know for sure who had the right of way. And yet it could not be cut down. It was the local lynching tree, and it was performing its duty to perpetually and eternally remind the Black townspeople of who among them had last been hanged from its limbs and who could be next. The tree was awaiting its appointed hour, and the white townspeople were willing to risk inconvenience, injury, and death, even to themselves, to keep the tree and the subordinate caste in their places. The tree bore silent witness to Black citizens of their eternal lot, and in doing so, it whispered reassurances to the dominant caste of theirs. Townspeople of the East Texas village of Leesburg hammered a buggy exile into the ground to serve as a stake. They then chained 19-year-old Willie McNeely to it. They collected the kindling they would use for the fire at the base of his feet, despite his protestations of innocence in connection to the white girl they said he had assaulted. 500 people gathered that fall in 1921 to see Wiley McNeely burned to death in front of them. But first, the leaders of the lynching had to settle a matter of importance. Leaders drew lots to see who would get which piece of McNeely's body after they had burned him alive. Figure out the body parts, which they regarded as the choicest souvenir. This they did in front of the young man facing his final seconds on this earth. They're chained up and left to hear of the disposition of his fingers and ears to the men who had kidnapped him outside of law. The leaders debated this in front of the 500 people who had come to watch him die and who were impatient for the festivities to begin. After the men had decided and after all was settled, they lit the match. The little girls appeared to be in grade school, in light cotton dresses with a sailor's collar and their hair cut in precise page boys just below their ears. In the picture, the two younger girls seemed to be fidgeting in shadow, close to the woman in the group, who were perhaps their mothers or aunts. The girl you notice first, though, looks to be about 10 years old, positioned at the front of the group of grown-ups and children, her eyes alert and riveted. A man is at her side, crisp in his tailored white pants, white shirt, and white Panama hat, as if headed to cocktail hour at a boating party, his arms folded, face at rest, unperturbed, vaguely bored. It is July 19th, 1935. They are all standing at the base of a tree in the pine woods of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Above them hangs the limb body of Reuben Stacy, his overalls torn and bloodied, riddled with bullets, his hands cuffed in front of him, head snapped from the lynching rope, killed for frightening a white woman. The girl in the front is looking up at the dead black man with wonderment rather than horror, a smile of excitement on her face as if show ponies had just galloped past her at the circus. The fascination on her young face, set against the gruesome nature of the gathering, was captured by a photographer and is among the most widely circulated of all lynching photographs of 20th century America. Lynchings were part carnival, part torture chamber, and attracted thousands of onlookers who collectively became accomplices to public sadism. Photographers were tipped off in advance and installed portable printing presses at the lynching sites to sell to lynchers and onlookers like photographers at a prom. They made postcards out of the gelatin prints for people to send to their loved ones. People mailed postcards of the severed, half-burned head of Will James atop a pole in Cairo, Illinois in 1907. They sent postcards of burned torsos that looked like the petrified victims of Vesuvius. Only these horrors had come at the hands of human beings in modern times. Some people framed the lynching photographs with locks of the victim's hair under glass if they had been able to secure any. One spectator wrote on the back of his postcard from Waco, Texas in 1916, "This is the barbecue we had last night. My picture is to the left with the cross over it, your son Joe." This was singularly American. Even the Nazis did not stoop to selling souvenirs of Auschwitz, wrote Time magazine many years later. Lynching postcards were so common a form of communication in turn of the century America that lynching scenes became a burgeoning sub-department of the postcard industry. By 1908, the trade had grown so large, and the practice of sending postcards featuring the victims of mob murderers had become so repugnant that the U.S. Postmaster General banned the cards from the mails. But the new edict did not stop Americans from sharing their lynching exploits. From then on, they merely put the postcards in an envelope. In downtown Omaha, they started a bonfire and readied it for Will Brown. The newspapers had advertised the lynching in advance, and as many as 15,000 people gathered on the courthouse square that day in September 1919. So many people that one cannot make out the faces in the human sea in a wide shot taken from above. These thousands of dots on a gelatin print, fathers, grandfathers, uncles, nephews, brothers, teenagers, were of one mind, had fused into an organism unto itself, intent on a single mission, not only to kill, but to humiliate, torture, and incinerate another human being, and together to breathe in the smoke of burning flesh. 2 days before, a white woman and her boyfriend had said that a black man had molested her when the couple were out on the town. No one alive knows what happened for sure, and there were questions even then. Resentment had been building against the influx of Black Southerners arriving north during the Great Migration, and Will Brown, a packing house worker, was the man the sheriffs arrested. There was no investigation, no due process. That day, the mob looted guns from local pawn shops and general stores and fired on the courthouse where Brown had been detained. Before they could even get to him, the mob killed two of their own, a bystander and a fellow rioter, with their ragged gunshots. They set the courthouse on fire to force the sheriff to hand Brown over to them. They cut the water hoses to keep the firefighters from putting out the blaze. And when the mayor tried to appeal to the mob, the leaders put a rope around his neck and inflicted injuries that put him in the hospital. Leaders of the mob pulled Brown from the rooftop of the courthouse, where the courthouse workers had escaped from the fire and where the prisoners had been taken. And the people in the mob began the task for which they had gathered. First, they stripped Will Brown, and those up front fought each other to beat him. They hoisted him, half conscious, onto a lamppost outside the courthouse. Then they fired bullets into his dangling body, cheering as they fired. And it was from these gunshots that the coroner said Brown died. They burned his body in the bonfire they had made on the courthouse square. Then they tied the body to a police car and dragged the corpse through the streets of Omaha. They cut the pieces of rope they had used to hoist him, and these they sold as keepsakes for people's display cabinets and fireplace mantles. The photographers on the scene captured the lynching from different angles and produced postcards of the men in business suits and teenagers in newsboy hats posing as if at a wedding reception, crowding into the frame above the charred torso, sparks of fire amid the ash, an image they would send to cousins and in-laws and former neighbors around the country. A 14-year-old boy was helping his father at his printing plant across the street from the courthouse in the middle of the riot. The boy's name was Henry Fonda, and he would leave Omaha when he grew up and make a name for himself as a leading man in Hollywood. An evening in 1919, against the hollers of the mob and the man hanging from the lamppost and the cinders of bonfire, Fonda and his father locked the plant and drove home in silence. It was the most horrendous sight I've ever seen, he would say years later when he was an old man. The decades had not swept the ash from his memory. It was perhaps no coincidence that he would appear in many movies in which he was the moral voice calling for a life to be spared. In the 1943 film, The Ox-Bow Incident, about vigilante violence, it was Fonda's character who warns a bloodlusting mob. Man just naturally can't take the law into his own hands and hang people without hurting everybody in the world. My goodness. I'm just going to leave that there. This chapter was entitled The Evil of Silence. The evil of silence. And those are only a few. That was a handful of instances and occurrences where the surrounding residents, the citizens, could have came together to stop it. Wow. Wow. That last incident took place at the mayor's office, at the sheriff department. The mayor, my goodness, they put a rope around the mayor's neck. They rendered the mayor harm. Pulled the man out of the hands of the sheriff. And they shot him execution style in front of the courthouse. They burned him from a bonfire they set on the courtyard of the courthouse. It's the very same act, it sounds like, the very same act that occurred January 6th. 2020. Wow. It is, oof. I will never, ever be able to perceive the level of hate and rage that penetrates some hearts, and the willingness to render another human being harm and to not see them as a human being. Oh, it is disgusting. And I can't help but to think that our ancestors endured this level of trauma and persecution, horror. That is, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna leave it there. We're entering part 3, and that is entitled "The 8 Pillars of Caste." In part 3, "The 8 Pillars of Caste," we will be picking that up with chapter 10 on Sunday, right here on the Voices of Empowerment. I'm kind of disoriented a little bit because it's impossible for me to read things like this and not envision it and not empathize and not sympathize and not connect to it, because several someones in my bloodline endured this for me to be here today. It's kind of wild. This book is available for you all. It's available for you to have. I recommend that everyone have it. I do. I recommend that everyone get a copy of this book. You can request your copy either by way of inbox from wherever you're listening, or email. I will personally send it to you. Again, this is free of charge. Yes, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and yes, we do accept donations, and you are more than welcome to do so. Donations are welcome. However, they are not required for you to receive this book or any other book that we are reading. You're more than welcome to them, okay? I do invite you also to visit my website. Go there and see what I have to offer you. If anything resonates with you, then you are more than welcome to take part in it. On Clubhouse, it's right above my head. You can just tap the link and it'll take you straight there. Everyone else is either on the screen or is in my bio. Feel free to go and take advantage of all the information and all of the services and merchandise that is available for you. I thank you in advance. For everyone, if you want to follow me on social media, please do so. I'm on all platforms under the name Dr. Bianca Miss B. Lee. Dr. Bianca Miss B. Lee. Okay? That is it for today. I'm just sitting with this. I'm sitting with it. I want to sit with it and just, just kind of sit with it for a moment. I'm not going to stay here. I don't want to ruminate, but it deserves its respect and reverence. It does. I thank you all. I love you. I mean it. There is absolutely positively nothing you can do about it. Don't you even try it. We will see you back here on Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Voices of Empowerment with Dr. B. Talk to you then. We might have our session on Saturday, because I do have to be in Huntsville early Sunday morning. A Monday morning. So I may be heading out on Sunday evening. So so let's do it. Let's make it for Saturday. If you all don't mind, a little, flexibility, a little pivot. All right. So Saturday, and even if you can't make it on Saturday, then you can listen to it whenever you want to. It's up to you. All right. But tentatively Saturday at 5 p.m. right here on Voices of Empowerment with Dr. B. Have a great evening. Thank you.